Everyone, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered here on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen people, including the Songhees and Cossapsum nations. I'm Parliamentary Secretary for Childcare, Rohini Arora. What a beautiful day out there. I hope you all get a chance to enjoy this beautiful day when you get a moment. And thanks to all of you for spending your lunch with us. Premier Eby, Minister Beare, and I are thrilled to be here today to share some exciting news for families. With that, I'd like to invite Premier Eby to say a few words.
It's great to see everybody, and thank you for joining us for an important announcement in the province. Also, an important day today. The Blue Jays are playing at 5 o'clock BC time, and I know we're all pretty excited about that as well. Before I really get going, I want to take a moment to reflect on the anniversary of October 7th, which is a significant date for the Jewish community in British Columbia and around the world, as well as many, many other people in British Columbia. The death and of many innocent people and the attacks of October 7th, the need for the hostages that were taken to be immediately released. I made a statement today in the legislature, but I didn't want the event to pass without recognizing both the horrific events of October 7th and the need for recognition and support of the Jewish community and the anti-Semitism that they face and the anxiety that they face following attacks, both here in British Columbia, across Canada, and internationally. And also to voice our support for Canada's efforts to reach a peaceful solution, a peaceful two-state solution, and get aid to the people who are suffering in the Gaza Strip right now. I'm a parent of young kids, and without childcare, we would be in a real jam at our house. I know for so many families across the province that is the case. And one of the big challenges that we had previously was in this province was that childcare was unaffordable for far too many people. It was an average of about $47 a day. And we've reduced that cost for families to an average of $19 a day to make sure that families have access to affordable childcare and they don't have to make difficult choices. If they wish to return to work after having a kid, they're able to do that. But a secondary challenge has emerged, which is making sure that we have those childcare spaces that are actually available for families in every corner of the province, that it is seamless, that you can drop your kids off at the beginning of the day and pick them up at the end of the day at hours that actually reflect your working realities. Our days don't start at 9 and end at 3. Life is much more complicated than that. And this challenge comes at a time when fiscal realities are pressing for families and for government. We have an economy that is under direct attack from the President of the United States. Uncertainty related to that is threatening business, and it's certainly hitting our forest sector incredibly hard. We put all these pieces together. How can we expand childcare, ensure that it's available in every corner of the province, and keep it affordable for parents, but also for taxpayers? This is why the announcement today is so, I think, positive and will be so effective in addressing concerns of many families across the province. We will be introducing legislation to support using existing infrastructure in our province, our schools that exist in every community across the province, that are built for kids, that are safe for kids, to deliver seamless childcare for families across BC. This is work that started with a pilot program with 3 school boards in the province, and the legislation now will enable school boards across BC to undertake this program, using schools that are designed for kids to be able to deliver seamless before and after school care for children. Now, we couldn't have brought this forward on our own without the support and the advocacy of a couple of key groups. First of all, teachers. The 9 to 3 period, those teachers are working hard with our kids directly in the classrooms, and outside of those hours, they're preparing for class. These classrooms are very personal to the teachers, and I want to thank the BCTF. I want to thank teachers for engaging in this work with us with an open mind, being willing to open those school spaces outside of school hours, including to other instructors, to be able to facilitate having kids in our schools getting childcare like this. The other group is CUPE. CUPE is the union that represents the support workers that are in many schools. And it was CUPE who came forward and said, not only are the buildings there to deliver this childcare, but so are the workers. And these are workers that would like to move from part-time jobs, which they're in right now, into full-time jobs as support workers. And school boards would find it easier to recruit workers if we did this. It makes a huge amount of sense, and I'm very grateful to them for their advocacy in bringing forward this proposal around how we can deliver that seamless care for parents from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. We've made a lot of progress in 8 years that I'm proud of. We have lower fees for families, reducing fees to an average of $19 a day, 2,600 new spaces for kids across the province, with more on the way. We have record school construction. We're building tens of thousands of spaces for students across BC, including seismically upgraded spaces. And today, what I hope will be life-changing for many parents, enabling school boards to be able to move ahead to deliver that seamless before and after school care in partnership with the staff at schools. It's very exciting, really important legislation. I want to thank the Ministry of Education, Rohini and Lisa, and their whole team for the work on delivering this wonderful announcement and this important legislation. Thanks very much.
Got stuck under your folder. Thank you, Premier Eby. These changes will make such a meaningful impact in the lives of families, helping them find childcare spaces that truly meet their needs. Along with stability and continuity, families deserve now and into the future. I'd like to now welcome Minister Lisa Beare to share a few words.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us on your lunch hour. So many of us here in this room, the Premier, myself, we are working parents of school-age children. We know how important this is. We know what a difference this is going to make in the lives of kids and of families. That is why today is so important. It's a step forward in our plan to increase spaces all across this province. Public schools are trusted spaces. They are community hubs, places where children go to learn, to play, and to spend their time. They hold incredible potential to offer the kinds of care and services that families need. And the amendments we're introducing to the School Act are about enabling more childcare that's high quality, affordable, close to home, and fits the lives of parents and of kids. We have seen success with this program already when we look at the school boards in Nanaimo or the Okanagan-Similkameen. The pilots that we did in these types of communities have shown us the path forward. Families, school boards, childcare advocates, education partners have all played an important role in this work and have all been advocating for it. As Premier Eby said, right from the very beginning, we as a government have worked towards a vision of affordable childcare for families for those who need it. And since the launch of our Childcare BC program in 2018, we have been able to increase spaces and reduce costs. Families are pocketing, on average, $6,700 a year in fee reductions. That's over $3 billion in money back in the pockets of families in the communities. By reducing parent fees, by increasing spaces, we are showing we're not done yet. This is one more step. By allowing childcare on school grounds, these legislative amendments are going to allow us to make smart use of the spaces we have. And it's about empowering school boards to take part. And I know they are very excited, and all our childcare partners are very excited to do this work. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you everyone for joining us today here at the Legislature. We have time for some questions, and we're going to start here on the ground. All reporters will have one question and one follow-up. Richard, we'll start with you.
Premier Eby, I'm sure you've seen at this point that Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is in Ottawa this morning. She described your comments as un-Canadian and unconstitutional. What do you say to the concerns that the Premier has raised about your opposition to a potential pipeline to BC's coast being un-Canadian?
Well, I think the big challenge here, and the challenge that I face as BC Premier, is British Columbia is poised to lead Canada into the new economy that we're all understanding is so crucial to create, one in which we're less dependent on the United States, one in which we're accessing world markets, one in which we're standing on our own 2 feet as a country. British Columbia is advancing more than $40 billion worth of projects, real projects with proponents, with financing that are reaching final investment decision. They're going to employ people, not just in every corner of British Columbia, but employ Canadians from across Canada. 50,000 people helped to build LNG Canada Phase 1. They came from every corner of this country. And the net benefit of that export project, the largest private sector investment in Canadian history, delivered by our government, the net benefit of that flows to all Canadians and to British Columbians. And so that's our work. And a significant piece of the BC economy, a significant aspect of the social license we have to deliver major projects like that and projects that are coming, is the support of communities up and down our amazing coast here in British Columbia. And so if you want to put that goodwill at risk, if you want to threaten these projects and say, we know that your goodwill and your support is dependent on a tanker ban, that the fishing grounds that you count on, the tourism you count on, the lifestyle that you enjoy as a coastal community member, that it's protected by the tanker ban. If we want to say we're going to get rid of that tanker ban and we're going to go after your way of life, let's at least make sure that the conversation is about a real project. Right now, the province of BC, the Premier of BC, is not a threat to the pipeline project of the Premier of Alberta because there is no pipeline project. There is a public relations department. There is a Crown Corporation with $14 million. The only way currently that project is going forward is with tens of billions of dollars of public money. And if this is in fact another multi-billion-dollar federally funded Alberta project, then where is the multi-billion-dollar federally funded project in British Columbia? That is the question that I'm asking. And what is the opportunity cost of a multi-billion-dollar taxpayer-funded Alberta project compared to what we can deliver here in BC, what we can deliver in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario, Quebec, the Maritimes, Newfoundland, the Territories? You show those premiers the opportunity to spend tens of billions of federal tax dollars, and what can they deliver? Give everybody a fair shot. It's not the Danielle Smith show, it's the Canadian team. And we all deserve the same opportunity for the same federal funding for our projects as she does for hers. That's not un-Canadian, that is fair, and there is nothing more Canadian than fairness. That is a core national value.
Richard, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, because you're on a bit of a roll here. Let's stick to this topic. Scott Moe also said last week that the coast of British Columbia is not BC's coast, but Canada's coast. You mentioned the goodwill built up along the coast. What do you make of Premier Moe's comments around our coastline?
Well, I agree with Premier Moe. I think that all Canadians should be proud of our Pacific coast and the opportunities that affords all Canadians, including Premier Moe in the potash industry. I have worked side by side with Premier Moe to promote port expansion, to be able to get his potash to international markets, to fight for the big potash companies to ship out of British Columbia and Canada instead of out of the United States. I'm keen to continue that work. All Canadians should take pride in the amazing Pacific coast of Canada. It is a remarkable place. It is visited by people around the world. Part of the intrinsic value that all Canadians feel when they look at that coast and their pride in our country is the fact that the coast has been well maintained, well managed, and is in fact that incredible wild space that we all value. The Great Beare Rainforest, for example. And so I encourage all Canadians, come, enjoy the coast, We'll work with you and make sure that your real projects get access to world markets. But please, don't ask us not to stand up for our coast, not to stand up for the lifestyle and the realities of people who live on the coast and have lived there for a long time and who rely on a clean and pristine coast and are supportive of economic development, but ask us to be careful, which I think is a very reasonable request.
Next, we'll head to Rob Buffum from CTV News.
Thanks, Premier. I just have one more on the same topic. Just the substance, the underlying substance of it that Scott Moe has indicated, and obviously Danielle Smith today, suggesting that BC has an obligation to provide access so they can realize their benefit of their resources. Is that point of view by BC that you were spearheading? Is that un-Canadian?
Well, I just asked for reciprocity, you know. Where is Alberta's support for the $40 billion plus in projects, real projects, that British Columbia is bringing forward? I wouldn't expect Danielle Smith to spend her time campaigning on those. That's my job as Premier. And that is the opportunity that British Columbians bring to the national table. These projects pay for equalization for other provinces. These projects provide employment for people from other provinces who go home and pay their income tax in other provinces. These projects that we are advancing will pay royalties that support the federal government program of meeting our NATO commitments. British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Alberta, we all do this work, making sure that our country is able to function as a whole. We're going to keep doing it, but we do need support to do it. And that support means things like supporting the real projects that we're advancing. We ask for federal support for that. There's lots that we can do together. In fact, BC will be the economic engine of the new economy that we're building. But support also means, please don't upset the fragile consensus that we have currently that I hope to make durable and long-term for resource development in British Columbia and Canada and our coast with a project that doesn't actually exist, with a project that's not actually funded. Let's talk about real projects. Let's deliver those projects. Let's actually raise our GDP. Let's create growth in the country. BC is on board for that. Let's get going.
Got a follow-up, Rob?
I do. Switching gears for a question on behalf of a colleague who's wondering about Surrey, where we're seeing an escalation of violence on an almost seemingly daily basis, including attached to extortion. They want to get a comment from you on that, as well as whether you think having the Bishnoi gang designated a terrorist organization will help, fighting this problem.
Yeah, we're certainly appreciative that the federal government listed the Lawrence Bishnoi gang as a terrorist entity, and certainly we encourage them to consider the same for any other groups that are involved in extortion. This is a deliberate act of terrorism against the people, particularly, but not exclusively, of Surrey. The same thing has been happening in Alberta and in Ontario. And my hope is that that designation gives tools to police that make it possible for them to make even more progress in arresting and disrupting the activities that are threatening the quality of life south of the Fraser and in other provinces. We have also stood up a special task force of police that resulted in 2 of the 7 recent arrests. That team is continuing their work. We continue to provide the support that's needed to interrupt and stop these activities. Our commitment to the people of Surrey is that we will not allow the rule of law to be set aside. We will not stand by while they face these threats. We'll make sure that police have the support that they need, and I am very grateful to police for their movement in arresting 7 people, and I hope that they arrest anybody else responsible or supporting this activity.
Next, we'll head to Katie DeRosa from CBC News.
Premier, you've repeatedly called this pipeline a fictional pipeline, but Danielle Smith said today that she has assurances from the Prime Minister that there could be an announcement as soon as next month by Grey Cup. Is that a possibility that you see? Perhaps Mark Carney doesn't think it's fictional.
Look, there are going to be press conferences, there are going to be committees, there are going to be crown corporations, there are going to be a whole array of it. It could be on the list, it could not be on the list. The test for me about whether the project exists is the test I apply to whether a project exists in British Columbia. Is there a proponent? Is there funding? Does it look like they're going to invest? Are they approaching a final investment decision? Are they investing? Are they ready to go? Have they applied for permits? Have they gone through environmental assessment process? And when I put that lens on projects in BC, the tally quickly goes to more than $40 billion worth of projects that will deliver tens of billions of dollars annually to the federal and provincial economies. And so when I apply that test to the pipeline, it fails on every count. And so when they are ready, you know, and frankly, I think I've expressed my skepticism, but they're not ready. There's no project. And the threat to our projects is very real. The activities engaged in by the Premier of Alberta pose a direct threat to major upgrades at the Port of Prince Rupert, for example, that depend on the support of the coastal First Nations, or a threat to the consensus around the support for LNG Canada Phase 2, which is a project worth tens of billions of dollars to the Canadian economy. I cannot fathom why that would take priority over the real projects that not just our province is advancing, but other provinces are as well.
Follow up, Katie?
Are you getting the sense that BC is the only province opposed, and that if it's a majority situation that BC will eventually lose out? Or are you the only one opposed to this project?
Well, I mean, opposed to what, I guess is the question. What I'm opposed to is using our coast as a political tool instead of engaging in serious conversations about how we advance our economy as a country and the projects that are actually going to deliver that, the private sector projects that are actually going to deliver that. So I guess I would say I'm not opposed to any real project that's been proposed.
Thank you. Next, we'll head to Alec Lazenby from the Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. Keeping in mind that there is no proponent and that this is not a real project at this time, what could BC do if a real project were to come forward to block such a project? And is that an action that you would look at taking if it came to that point?
Yeah, Alec, so it crossed my mind, obviously, and I did pursue this strategy for a bit of just saying, hey, look, you know, when Alberta gets their project together, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And because I didn't want this fight. I don't want this fight. We've got tons of work to do with Alberta. We can help lower electricity rates for Albertans through intertie. We've got a hydrogen industry to build together. We've got to get federal standards around how to get that hydrogen out to the coast. These are real projects that people actually want to do. There is a significant taxpayer-owned existing pipeline with an optimization project that could result in significant additional access to tidewater for Alberta bitumen, not even on the table. And so instead of talking about those things, and so I said, you know, maybe we can work on those things and then you can just work on your pipeline project that, bluntly, I don't believe is ever going to come to fruition because it is too expensive and the cost of oil is too low and there is no private proponent for it. So I'll just let it ride. But then the Premier of Alberta struck a Crown corporation, began calling coastal First Nations whose support we rely on for billions of dollars of projects, saying this is coming. And then they're calling me and saying, is this coming? What's happening? If you do this, all your other projects we're going to have to review because of the impacts on the coast. And I have to say, enough. We need, as a country, less politics and more projects. The projects are real in British Columbia. They are the envy, rightly, of many, many places around the world. We have resources to bring to market that will assist us in reducing our dependence on the United States, employ a big pile of those young people that are looking for jobs right now. When we get them the trades training that they need, we're talking about thousands and thousands of jobs that are potentially going to be delivered through these projects. And so this isn't like a minor or trivial thing. This is the future of the BC economy and the future of the Canadian economy. And so I just ask what anyone else would ask. If Alberta gets a $50 billion publicly funded pipeline, then I want a $50 billion federal guarantee for projects in British Columbia as well. And I want $50 billion for every province across Canada and every territory because their projects are just as damn important as Alberta's project is.
Do you have a follow-up, Alec?
Yes, I do. On the North Coast transmission line, which is something that you will be introducing legislation on later this session. I know you've talked a little bit about the chicken and the egg problem with that project, about needing to make sure that there's both the supply and the demand. How does that differ from what Alberta is proposing in terms of that project? Because you need to go forward with it in a way that, you know, industry is comfortable with without necessarily having industry investment.
So that project, and I'm glad you raised it, that project, the North Coast Transmission Line, enables somewhere in the neighborhood of about $40 or $50 billion in capital, private capital investment in 11 mines in Tahltan territory. The electricity reduces the operating costs for the mines, making it possible to get to final investment decision to open those mines and hire thousands of people. The mines, when operating, will produce $15 billion annually in revenue for the federal and provincial government and for First Nations. This is a private sector-led initiative in the sense that these projects will not go ahead without the adequate electricity to reduce their operating costs and be able to make that final investment decision. So what we're talking about is an investment that is a fraction that will catalyze a massive private sector investment, and not only will open up those mines, but will enable the protection of wild spaces that are critically important to British Columbians in the Tahltan, as well as produce some of the lowest carbon metals anywhere in the world that all British Columbians can be proud of, while employing thousands of people in good union jobs that have benefits and support families. It is profoundly exciting, the opportunities that we are bringing forward, the amount of private capital that they will deploy in our province to build a strong future, to ensure we're delivering public services, and I am thrilled about it. And I am thrilled for any province or territory that brings forward projects like that, and I support them as well.
Thank you. Next, we'll head to Wolfgang Deppner from the Canadian Press.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. Back to metaphysics. Premier, can you sort of explain, or at least psychologize, if you wish, why Premier Smith is bringing up this particular issue now, and how do you explain her escalation in terms of the rhetoric? Because we've gone, in terms of rhetoric, we've seen an escalation. And can you sort of explain, from your perspective, why she's doing that? And how might today's meeting between the Prime Minister and President Trump fit into her rationale? Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, well, the challenge, I think, that I face is that the realities of Alberta politics are a long way from British Columbia. Premier Smith is doing what I assume Premier Smith feels she needs to do as the Premier of Alberta that is seeking re-election. What I can say, though, from British Columbia is, from my perspective, what we should be focused on, what we can be focused on, is working together to raise the quality of life of people in Alberta, people in British Columbia, and people across the country. And we should not be focused on what divides us, especially when what divides us is a non-existent project. So that's my perspective on this. It feels a lot more like communications and politics than profits and prosperity.
You have a follow-up, Wolf?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Heading into today's meeting between the Prime Minister and President Trump, there was considerable talk about reductions in terms of steel tariffs, that there was some sort of a deal in place. Obviously, we don't know yet what that deal...
Reductions in terms of which?
Steel tariffs. Certainly that's been...
I heard seal, and I was like,
yeah,
wrong
seals,
province,
yeah.
man.
Different Canadian economy, about
yes, that's right.
17th century. But let's talk about that aspect again. In the past, the Prime Minister has repeatedly said that Canada would not sell out the softwood lumber industry to other sectors in the Canadian industry. Yet today, though, we hear discussions of some sort of arrangement around steel tariffs. I want to get to your reaction to that. And can you sort of also comment on your fear that this could indeed be the case where softwood lumber is going to be left out in any future negotiations or any future agreement? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Wolf. Well, the crisis facing forest-dependent communities in our province is real. It's not just in our province, it's in New Brunswick and Quebec that are feeling the impact of the allegation from the president that Canadian softwood lumber is a national security threat that requires an additional 10% tariff. I actually, to date, have been quite heartened by the Prime Minister and Dom LeBlanc's response to this. Too often, our softwood battles with the United States have been shunted off to the side, not considered a priority. But we've seen the Prime Minister commit to $1.2 billion in support for the softwood industry. We're in direct discussions with them about getting that money flowing immediately to support our softwood sector that's under threat. And I've been reassured that the federal government understands and is advancing our argument, which is that softwood presents one of the most significant opportunities to reach an early agreement with the Americans. There's $8 billion sitting in a tariff account that could be distributed to grow the market for everybody. Producers here are willing to engage in conversations about a tariff that is based on a quota, much like the auto sector is. And so when we're engaging in those conversations, I am assured by both the Prime Minister and the lead trade representative, Don LeBlanc, that they are advancing the softwood conversation. Part of the challenge for us is the collapse in the American housing market. Our softwood lumber industry sells a lot of wood to build homes in the US and places like Texas. That market has completely collapsed. And so that complicates things in terms of this discussion, but it doesn't make it any less important. And I've been reassured and I have seen in action in terms of the funding and support for the softwood sector that we haven't seen before in previous years, that the federal government takes this seriously. And until that changes, I'm glad for the support.
Next, we'll head to Mark Page from the Black Press.
Yeah, sorry to go back to the pipeline issue again, but you know, we've heard you say often, like there's no real project and you support keeping the tanker ban in place. But if you oppose this project, why not just put the issue to rest and just say, I oppose a pipeline to the North Coast? Like, is that your position?
Wow, I mean, I think I was pretty explicit. I think that this project puts at risk tens of billions of dollars in real projects that are being advanced here. I am not in favor of shipping raw bitumen through our coast by lifting the oil tanker ban and exposing our precious coastal communities, the fishing grounds, the tourism, the thousands of jobs that are dependent on the pristine coast, and the support of the communities there for what we're doing in a bunch of different varieties. I don't know how much clearer I can be, but there is no project to oppose here, so I'm not going to oppose a non-existent project. What I oppose is the meddling and interference in us delivering real projects in our province. Yes, I support the tanker ban. That means that there should not be a raw bitumen pipeline running through the north to the coast and jeopardizing all of this incredible work that we're doing to grow BC's economy and the country's economy. But man, this is a real angels on the head of a pin discussion, and it is a bit of a frustrating one because the project doesn't actually exist. And we actually have a taxpayer-funded, taxpayer-owned pipeline that not only is not at capacity, but has a significant optimization project that we could be working on with Alberta, but we're not talking about that because it's not as interesting in terms of the politics in Alberta. And you know, for whatever reason, that's the priority of the Premier of Alberta, but that's not our priority here in British Columbia.
Do you have a follow-up, Mark?
Yeah, you talked a bit about softwood lumber, but can you give us your thoughts on what you're hearing about the Trump-Carney meeting just generally? What you're hearing about today's Trump-Carney meeting, and you know, what do you hope comes out of this meeting? Like, do you see the possibility of any progress on issues? Like, what do you think is going to happen here?
You know, it's so unpredictable with the president. I thought I caught a little bit of the Prime Minister sitting down with the president on TV as it was happening live. I thought he was very disciplined, and I thought he represented Canadians well. It's obviously a very challenging environment to work in with a leader like Donald Trump. And so he has my support to try to get the best deal possible for Canadians. And I thank him for his work today, which surely wasn't easy.
Thank you. Next, we'll head to Jeremy Hainsworth from BC Today.
Hi, Premier. One specter that hangs over the entire pipeline thing is the Exxon Valdez in Prince William Sound. Have you heard, or what have you heard from the governments of Alaska on Danielle Smith's proposals?
Thanks. I haven't been in contact with the government of Alaska because it's not actually a real project and there's no threat to the Alaska coast from this proposal from the Premier of Alberta.
Do you have a follow-up, Jeremy? You do not. Okay. Well, next we'll head to Shannon Waters from the Narwhal.
Hi. Katie mentioned the timeline for the next round of federal major project picks that's coming up. You've mentioned the North Coast transmission line as something you'd maybe like to see Ottawa move forward with. What else is the top of your priority list at this point in time for those next set of projects in BC?
Yeah, I was glad to see the North Coast transmission line and the whole corridor, and including the mines included in. There was sort of a secondary list, I guess, that was referred to the Major Projects Office to support the development of proposals. I would love to see, and our big push is around the North Coast transmission line because it enables Indigenous partnership, protection of wild spaces, low carbon metals shipped at a low cost out of Canada to global markets, driving our economy, employing thousands of people. It checks off every box that you could possibly imagine in terms of federal and provincial government priorities, as well as the priorities of every Canadian. It'll be a project that we'll all be incredibly proud of, and I'm very hopeful that the feds include that on our list. That is our full push right now with the feds, is that particular project.
Follow up, Shannon?
Yeah, Jeremy mentioned the Exxon Valdez, but when I think about this latest sort of brewing conflict between BC and Alberta, the infrastructure involved, I think about the Trans Mountain pipeline twinning. I'm wondering if you've been thinking about that project in light of this new proposal from Alberta, and what, if any, lessons you think BC might apply should that conflict continue to develop?
I don't know. I think there are some pretty significant differences between that project and this proposal. And there's some pretty significant realities that are different between that period of time and today. So I find it hard to compare those things. But one of the things that I do want to draw attention to in terms of that project is the fact that it's one of the areas where potentially we could be cooperating with Alberta, but instead, for whatever reason, it's not the priority of the Premier of Alberta. So I find that hard, but apparently necessary. And if so, I'll stand up for BC and our coast.
We have time for one last question. We're going to head to Julie Landry from Radio Canada.
Merci, bonjour. John Rostad said that he's looking into a way to go around the tanker ban, that it's possible. What do you think about that?
Well, this isn't a surprise to me. The BC Conservatives have taken every step they can to undermine our efforts as British Columbians to build the kind of economy that all Canadians deserve. To start with, when we were hit by the Trump tariffs, I heard repeatedly calls from the Conservatives to agree with Donald Trump. That Donald Trump was just asking us some very common things, and that we should immediately agree that we shouldn't take the alcohol off the shelves, we shouldn't retaliate, that was the wrong thing to do. Then we saw the Conservatives oppose the North Coast Transmission Line, an electrical line that will drive economic development up and down the Northwest Coast, will deliver thousands of jobs through 11 different mines representing $40 to $50 billion in capital investment, opposing that electrification. And now I hear that the Conservatives are having secret conversations with Danielle Smith about trying to get around the tanker ban that protects thousands of jobs up and down the coast for a project that doesn't even exist, and advocating for Alberta to get access to tens of billions of dollars of federal project money instead of advocating for BC to get access for tens of billions of dollars of federal project money. I can't understand why the Conservatives want to destroy our provincial economy, but I'll tell you this, I'm going to stand up for our economy, I'm going to stand up for building our projects, and we're going to deliver the kind of economy that all British Columbians and all Canadians can be proud of, and that's what I'm excited about.
Julie, you don't have a follow-up? Okay. And that concludes today's event. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.